Hi Stampin' friends. We're doing our Technique at 2 and it's Stamped Emboss Resist. This is something that has already, celebration is over, but in case anyone chose this textures and frames die, a lot of people have used this as a, making a geometric pattern and doing little things like that, but stamping it in different bright, pretty colors. But I want to just show using it to create areas for Emboss Resist. So that's what I did on this card. And, or this, I guess it's just a piece of a card at this point. What I did was I stamped this entire thing in our, using our markers. And I'll show you how I did that in just a second. It's pretty simple. And then I just stamped the big open filled area with Versamark, and then I used my blending brushes to put, I actually on this one used, and I think it could use maybe a more intense color, but on this one I used this soft sea foam, and so it kind of made a nice soft green background on here. So you can see kind of how that looks, and then the certain spots here are lighter. So I would just continue to finish this card with just some ribbon across the bottom and probably the sentiment right there. And probably I would use our ivory, because that's what I used on this, was the very vanilla, probably as my ribbon across the bottom, just to kind of tie in the places where I've left it blank. So I stamped the other one slightly different. So I wanted to show you that. I'm going to then use Pool Party on it to add the color. So we'll see if we like that one. So the first thing I'm going to show you here is just how I stamp this. So it's really simple. I just used crushed curry on the aspen leaf because I thought that that made sense. And I used cinnamon cider on the oak leaf, again, because that color kind of made sense to me. I'm being very careful as I do this to only use the side of the stamp. You don't ever want to get this tip end messed up by getting it, by rubbing it against the side. So I'm trying to rub it up high along the side of the, marker so that I don't get a mess going with that. Okay, so there you can see I have added that. So I'm just going to stamp on here. Like, let's say maybe I'll stamp it right there. And then as I go through and add more color and stuff like that, I will want to switch around where these are stamped, just kind of mix them around on the paper, kind of like if you're any kind of one-sheet wonder that you're doing. One-sheet wonder is where you stamp a larger piece of paper, like perhaps an 8.5 by 11, and then you cut it in smaller pieces. So that's something to consider when you have leaf stamps like this and snowflakes, different things like that, so that you can stamp them all around on the paper and then cut it up and make it into different cards, just using parts of it as if it were designer series paper. Okay, I'm going to do this one more time just to kind of show you. Now what I'll do on the edges is just kind of add a little bit of color, just a little bit of one of the leaves, just to kind of, like right here, maybe I could use some of the yellow, and maybe I wouldn't necessarily ink up the whole stamp, each one of the three with that so I don't waste ink. But you could, because sometimes you can get a little bit of an extra spot that's just kind of close to there that will get some ink on it, and that can be kind of frustrating. Okay, so this one I want to do like this. There we are. So then I'm going to get some yellow on this one. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing there. Sorry about that. And I'm going to put the tip here on this and the edge of this one in case I should happen to catch a little bit of that as I'm stamping my yellow over here on the side. So I want to put it right there. And yeah, see how I caught that little bit of yellow? I mean, a little bit of Poppy Parade. I want to be sure that I don't have any problems like that. So that's why I'm doing these edges. I'm probably wasting just a little bit of ink, but it's worth it so that I don't have any funny spots. So then I'm doing the same thing down here so that I can add a little bit of the ribbon. So there you can see I've done this, and I would do the same thing down the other side, trying to twist and turn so that I don't end up with any uninked spots or spots that look like they could use another leaf. Okay, so now at this point, I'm going to go ahead and show you how I did my stamping of this one. Instead of using those circles on this one, I inked up my leaves with Versamark and stamped them. So we're gonna see a completely different look here. What we're gonna see is just leaves on top of leaves. So this is gonna be kind of strange, and it's kind of one of those things where like, I hope it turns out, I hope that you like the way it looks, and we'll see. This is certainly one that would look good with snowflakes as well. If you stamp them in like a purple and then use blue as the background, that could be really pretty. Okay, so here I go. We will see how this turns out. So I tried intentionally to not, this sounds silly, but I tried intentionally to not stamp it directly on my original ink spot, if that makes sense. Because what I wanted, do you see how this one has a shadow? It's just kind of a little bit weird. I kind of intentionally wanted that to be the case. I wanted to show that it had been stamped twice. And since I'm using blue, it's not going to cover up any of these colors. It's going to kind of make the yellow look a little green, but it doesn't make these colors, they're bold colors, and I'm using a really light color, so it doesn't really muddy them very much. So I'm just going to keep doing this. I'm going to go ahead and, this is kind of boring, I'm sorry, but I'm just going to go ahead and finish that up. Just using my blending brushes. And I find this is, you know, sometimes when we're doing the techniques where we're wanting to make a background, I have to worry a lot about where I've set my brush down so that I don't make a circle. So that's something I don't have to worry as much about on this one, because I'm just going to set these where I have embossed, so it's not going to be as crucial that I don't have a particular spot, because you just keep adding more and more ink as you go. So I'm probably going to have it on my hand here where I'm holding the card. Okay, so after I've done this, I could go back in with a little bit of Bermuda Bay, maybe on the edges, and that's going to look really pretty. I'll try that here in just a second, but I want to kind of get finished with this particular part of it. Make sure I get these spots as well done as I can. Okay, and I did have a little bit, I didn't use my embossing putty, and I did have a little bit of carryover of a little bit of my embossing powder, but I kind of think that just kind of adds to it. But I don't know if you can see how that pops. But what I'm going to do next is use just a tiny dab of dampness right on where I think these spots are. Now this is going to cause this to curl a little bit, and you may have to use extra adhesive to get it stuck down to your card base when you get to that point. But what I've done here is just, because the ink does stick a little bit to the embossing powder, even though it's been embossed. And so you see, I don't know if, gosh, I hope I caught this, but that makes it pop even more. It makes the color shine a little more. So now I'm just gonna finish up the edge. I'm gonna get out my Bermuda Bay and hopefully add just a little bit of color. I hope I can show restraint and not get too crazy. And I am on this one going to start off the page so that I don't get a mess going. But oh, there I kind of did. Got a little much, guys. Sorry about that. There you can see I'm adding color just to make the edges have more intense color. It just kind of gives it more of a fall look. The other is kind of Pool Party is kind of a summer or a spring color. So, but this Bermuda Bay really gives it a pop at the edge. So there I go. I'm just adding a little bit more all around the edge, just so that the center then is much lighter than the edge, is my plan anyway. Okay, So then I'm gonna do the same thing again. Just be sure I've got most of the, don't wanna have too much leftover ink here on these edges. Be sure that my colors pop well, and just use a really dry spot and dry it completely off. So there you can see how that looks. Then at this point, it would be gorgeous to drip some water on here and make little spatters. So I'll probably do that before I finish my card. But I think you can see here that this really pops. This would look good on, actually on the Old Olive, even though there's no Old Olive on this card. It really matches the intensity of the Bermuda Bay. But if you want to have it a lighter look, I think it's really pretty on the pool party still. Whereas, you know, the center is the pool party and the outer edge is the Bermuda Bay. But a few specks of like, I don't know if you've done this before, but you know, with your Wink of Stella, just put some specks of like this, flicking, yeah, there, I flicked some then. Flicking a little bit of your alcohol sparkles on here. Gosh, I don't think you can see them though. You can see it on my finger where I missed, but just to kind of give it a little more sparkle. And then to use a little bit of water to spatter it as well. Probably on that, I would want to use one of my, get these guys. Let's see, let me get it. Just drip it down to the end. There we go. And just spatter like this. Hope I made that make sense. I'm gonna do it one more time. There we go. One more. And I'll show you how this looks when I'm done. Let's see. Not getting them exactly where I want them, but that's probably fine. It'll look more random this way. Okay, now let's see if I've got it where you can see those water splatters. So there you can see my little water splatters. And then I'm gonna add some, I may add some more depending on how this looks when it's dry. If you're in a hurry, you can use your heat tool to heat these up. And then you can, once you're finished with this, you could probably add some ribbon and your sentiment, of course. Sorry this isn't like a completed card. I just kind of wanted to show you some different techniques and some things to kind of jazz up your stamping here in the fall. Just, you know, things that you might not think about, but can look really cute. So there you can see how that turned out. And I appreciate you watching, and I hope that you have a great day.